First light seeps into the valley like spilled watercolor, bleeding from black to deep blue to soft gray. The old Chinese town emerges slowly from darkness, tile roofs first, then wooden pillars, finally stone pathways. Inside homes, paper windows turn diffuse dawn into pearlescent glow that fills rooms without sharp edges. Shadows cling to corners like memories refusing to fade. The air carries night's final gifts, polished with scent, clean rush grass fragrance. Mineral clay wall breath. A deep stillness hangs, not empty silence, but full. Peaceful quiet of many hearts beating in unconscious harmony. Underquotes stitched with generational patterns, families sleep in shared democracy. Father lies on his side, work roughened hands, relaxed palms open. Daytime responsibility lines have smoothed in sleep, returning temporary youth. His breath follows slow rhythm, deep inhalation expanding chest, quiet pause. Long exhalation releasing yesterday's cares. Each cycle takes 10 seconds exactly. Beside him, his wife sleeps curved toward their youngest child. Dark hair fans across lotus-embroidered pillow, threads faded to color whispers, even unconscious. Her body maintains connection, one hand resting lightly on child's back. Rising, falling with small breaths, dreams play beneath fluttering eyelids. Rapid movements hinting at private stories. Occasionally lips form silent words to dream people. Visiting this borderland, children sleep with unself-conscious abandon. Boy has kicked quilt free, one arm flung wide, embracing the room, other tucked beneath cheek. Faint musical snore vibrates in throat airways completely relaxed. His younger sister sleeps curled around cloth doll, face pressed into yarn hair, them resting near mouth, daytime habit almost conquered, still offering comfort and vulnerability. Their breaths form quiet duet, his deeper with whizzing peaks, hers constant gentle flutter. In another room, an elder rests. Sleep for them is different country visited frequently, shorter stays. They lie with thin blanket despite night's coolness, body a map of lived time. Their breathing his own vocabulary, shallow inhales, pauses stretching slightly too long, sudden gasps his body reminds itself to continue, rattling exhalation speaking of survived winters. Hands resting atop blanket till silent tails, fingers permanently curved as if still holding tools from younger days, knuckles swollen into experienced mountain ranges. The house keeps its own time through sound. As deep as night cold releases, materials contract and settle. A main beam groans as fibers tighten, low bass note filled in bones more than heard. Tatami mats crinkle as compressed rush grass adjusts. In kitchen, copper pot sways an imperceptible draft, rim brushing wall with metallic whisper at regular intervals. These are the house's heartbeat, its independent life proof. Outside, town begins awakening symphony. Sounds emerge as isolated notes in silence. Wooden bolt slides back with dry clacks several lanes away, old Whittle Yang beginning her day. As for 60 years, long grown of door swinging inward, splash of water on threshold, rhythmic swish of bamboo broom. These sounds don't interrupt silence, they give it shape and meaning. Further off, someone begins pounding in mortar steady, patient thump of grain preparation. Dog barks twice, not suspicious night bark, but alert daytime announcement. From river mist come first birds, testing chirps, single notes thrown into air like questions. Water drips from roof tile into stone basin, each drop perfectly formed, holding gray light briefly before surrendering. Now light begins true work. Eastern sky warms from gray to lavender to pale peach. This new light finds mountain gaps, sends exploratory fingers across land. One beam strikes river mist swirling above water, igniting formless vapor into gold and rose-swirling river of fire and air illuminated from within. This spectacle has no human audience, only herons and reeds and fish in cool depths. Reflected glow washes over town's eastern wall. Suddenly shadows with defined edges. Gate tower shadow stretches across empty market square. Solitary pine shadow reaches down hillside. For first time, objects have dark companions clinging to western sides. Inside family courtyard, this light works minor miracles. Dew on spider webs becomes diamond necklaces. Water in stone cistern transforms from black to liquid gold. Leaves on potted tree glow as if lit from within. Snail climbing wall leaves shining silver trail. Paper windows undergo final transformation, from gray rectangles to luminous amber panels. Fibrous paper glowing like lantern skins. Where small tear exists, slender sunlight blade cuts through, projecting brilliant line onto opposite wall, illuminating hanging instrument. With light comes sleep's dissolution. Father experiences dawn as breathing rhythm shift. Automatic cycle stutters. He draws breath, catching halfway, completes with deeper pull. Eyelids show tiny tremors. Beneath them, eyes begin rapid movement, dreams ascending from subconscious depths. He dreams of ordinary tasks, checking garden irrigation pipes, but water flows upward. Sleeping mind puzzles at impossibility. Light falling on face becomes dream part. Uphill water becomes field sunrise. Dream self feels warmth in reality. Right hand slowly curls into fist, the hand holding tools, lifting baskets. Gentle disciplining, then relaxes, fingers spreading. Wife clings to dream market. Sweeping sounds become mother brushing vegetable dirt. Pounding becomes cleaver chopping ginger. Mother's face vivid, offered spices tangible. She makes soft pleasure sound deep-throated hum. Body tenses slightly, not with waking, but with effort remaining in lost world. Boy encounters dream flight turbulence. Wind buffets him, rooftops rush up. Physical body responds, flung arm jerks back, legs kick once. Eyes open completely for 3 seconds, dark pupils staring at visible ceiling beams without recognition. Sleep still holds most consciousness, familiar cracks appear as strange shapes. Before wakefulness claims this beachhead, sleep's tide pulls back under. Little girl, most sensitive to changing energy, feels subtle alterations, warming air, brightening light, different breathing qualities. Thumb searches but doesn't find mouth, presses cloth doll harder against nose. Inhaling comforting scent, makes small sound, not cry but murmur protesting approaching day. Above and loft, elder opens eyes, for him no transition, one moment hearing decades past voice. Next staring at familiar thatch smoke patterns, knows exact time from small window light angle. Doesn't move, this is dawn ritual, lying still listening to family waking below. Feeling house gather itself, remembering, hears son's change breathing. Granddaughter's sleepy protest, feels son's first direct heat on above tiles. Profound contentment settles in bones, contentment of man seeing this miracle thousands times. Finding it more precious each repetition, outside town's awakening gains momentum. Another door opens, then another. Metallic clangs, distant calls, well pulley creaks, laundry snaps, sounds remain. Sparse but begin connecting, forming day's first fragile community network. Inside, light has won, shadows retreat to final strongholds under cabinets, behind chests, beneath platforms. Room reveals itself in full gentle detail, dormant loom, ancestor tablet, hanging utensils. Grain painting, everything waits. Family exists in perfect fleeting moment between sleep and waking. Bodies rested, minds quiet, days demands not yet crystallized. They float in sweet suspension where nothing required, nothing urgent, everything possible. Father's hand twitches toward wife's. Mother's breathing synchronizes with child's. Boy's snore softens to sigh. Girl's doll grip relaxes by 1 degree. Dawn light has fully entered quiet wooden houses. Families sleep peacefully still. But their peace now deep satisfaction rather than oblivion's embrace. Down around slowly stirs. And in this gentle transition, this sacred pause between night and day, entire world holds breath, honoring simple profound miracle of awakening. A single, deliberate inhalation slightly deeper than the sleep breaths preceding it marks the true beginning. The mother's eyes open. She does not startle awake, she surfaces. For long moments she simply lies still, gazing at the familiar cracks in the ceiling beam above. Her mind a calm blank slate. The weight of her sleeping child beside her is a warm anchor. Slowly, with a motion that is more a rolling of consciousness than a physical effort, she turns her head on the pillow. She sees her husband's sleeping profile, the gentle rise and fall of his chest. Her gaze shifts to the window where the paper panels glow with the soft, persistent light of full dawn. It is time. With silent grace, she slips from beneath the quilt. The cool morning air touches her skin, raising fine hairs on her arms. She sits on the bed's edge, her feet finding the smooth, cool planks of the floor, the day's first tactile connection. She takes a deep, centering breath, feeling night's residue leave her body. Across the room, her husband's breathing pattern alters in response to her absence of warmth. The subtle change in pressure, a sigh, a shift of his shoulder. His eyes open, meeting hers in the gentle gloom. No words pass between them. The look is enough, a shared, quiet acknowledgement of the new day, a wordless pact to begin. Their rising is a synchronized, silent ballet. He sits up, rubbing a hand over his face, feeling the scratch of his beard. She stands, her joints emitting tiny, comfortable pops. They move to the small cabinet where their day clothes are kept simple, well-worn garments of undyed hemp and soft cotton. The ritual of dressing is performed with unhurried care. He pulls on loose trousers, tying the drawstring with practiced fingers. She wraps a long skirt around her waist, securing it with a sash. They help each other with the backs of their tunics, a brief touch of fingers on fabric, a silent good morning. Their first shared task is the bed. Together, they fold the heavy quilts, stacking them neatly in a carved wooden chest. They smooth the sleeping mats, patting them into place. This act is not mere tidying, it is a symbolic closing of the night's chapter, a restoration of order to the space that will soon become the day's living arena. He moves to the heart of the home. Kneeling on the packed earth, he carefully clears the previous night's ashes with a small, flat shovel. The soft scrape of metal on clay is a quiet, domestic sound. He examines the remaining embers, glowing faintly like dormant orange eyes. With a pair of bamboo tongs, he rearranges them, nurturing a tiny flame back to life with a few dry twigs and a gentle breath. The fire crackles awake, its light dancing on his intent face. She, meanwhile, takes a wooden bucket and steps outside into the courtyard. The morning air outside is fresh and damp, carrying the scent of wet earth and blooming jasmine. At the well, she lowers the bucket, the pulley emitting its familiar, high-pitched creak, a sound heard 10,000 times, yet never ignored. The bucket hits water with a deep, hollow splash. She hauls it up, arm muscles tightening with the familiar strain, and pours the clear, cold water into a waiting basin. Back inside, they perform their ablution side by side at a low bench. They splash water on their faces, the shock of cold clearing the last fog of sleep. They share a cloth to dry, a simple, intimate gesture. Now comes the preparation of tools, the quiet commissioning of the day's instruments. His domain is the small antechamber where farming and repair tools are kept. He selects a hoe, its wooden handle polished smooth by the grip of his hands and his father's before him. He runs his thumb along the blade's edge, checking for nicks, his expression one of deep respect. Each tool is examined, cleaned if necessary, and laid out with intention. There is no rush. A loose bamboo strip on the basket is carefully ray-dyed. A speck of rust on a trout well is rubbed away with an oiled rag. Her domain is the kitchen corner and the hearth, now cheerfully crackling. She takes stock of the day's provisions, a sack of rice, a basket of yesterday's greens, a string of dried mushrooms, a clay pot of fermented beans. She counts bowls and chopsticks, her hands moving with efficient, unhurried grace. She fills the iron kettle with water and sets it on the fire's edge to heat. She sharpens her main kitchen knife on a smooth stone, the rhythmic SHHH click, a soft, focused sound. Their paths cross and recross in the small home. He carries his tools to the doorway to examine them in better light. She pauses behind him with an armful of kindling. There is no collision, no excuse me. They move with an unconscious, fluid understanding of each other's space and rhythm. Their dance choreographed by years of shared mornings. When their eyes meet, there is a softness, a mutual recognition of their partnership in this daily creation of life. He steps outside into the courtyard to examine the sky, reading the clouds, the color of the dawn, the direction of the wine and ancient farmer's weather forecast. She joins him for a moment, handing him a cup of the now hot water. They stand together in silence, sipping, watching the last stars fade. They listen to the town's growing chorus, more doors opening, more voices calling soft greetings. The distant rhythmic thud of a loom from a weaver's house. Returning inside, they begin the final preparations. He fills a leather flask with water for the fields. She wraps a simple lunch of rice balls and pickled vegetables in a cloth. These are placed by the door, ready for his departure. She then turns to the task of preparing the morning meal for the children and elder, measuring rice into a pot, beginning the slow simmer that will fill the house with a comforting, grainy aroma. Every movement is measured, calm, and purposeful. There's no wasted energy, no frantic searching for misplaced items. Every object has its place, every action its time. The father's hands as they oil a tool handle are steady and sure. The mother's hands as she rinses rice are gentle and precise. Their calm is a tangible force in the room, a quiet confidence that settles over the home like a blessing. They are not preparing to battle the day, they are aligning themselves with its flow, tuning their spirits to its slow, inevitable rhythm. The simple tools in their hands, the humble ingredients on her table, these are not just objects, but extensions of their care, their patience, their unhurried devotion to the life. They are building moment by peaceful moment in the quiet heart of the old town. The children's waking is a slow, natural unfurling. like petals responding to the sun's warmth rather than any alarm. It begins with subtle shifts in the rhythm of their sleep. The boy Xiaofeng first draws his knees up slightly, curling inward as if the core of his body is waking first. A deep sigh escapes him, carrying the weightlessness of a fading dream. His eyelids, previously still, begin a faint, fluttering dance. He does not open his eyes yet, but swims upward through layers of sleep, his consciousness a deep-sea diver ascending toward light. His sister, Xiaoying, wakes differently. Her body remains perfectly still, but her breathing changes. The slow, even breaths of deep sleep become shallower, quicker, as if her heart has already begun to anticipate the day. Her thumb, which had been resting near her mouth, instinctively seeks it out. The primal self-soothing gesture that bridges the vulnerable gap between sleep and wakefulness. She sucks gently, her eyes still closed, clinging to the last vestiges of her dream assembled. Warm place with no edges. Their mother appears at the doorway, a silhouette against the brightening paper window. She does not call out. She simply watches for a moment, her face softening at the sight of them in their vulnerable, transitioning state. Then she approaches, her steps silent on the tatami. She kneels beside Xiaoying first, placing a warm hand on the child's back. The touch is not a startle, but an anchor. Xiaoying's eyes blink open dark, liquid pools filled with sleep's confusion. She sees her mother's face and recognition dawns, smoothing the faint worry from her brow. The thumb slips from her mouth. "Good morning, little blossom," her mother whispers, the words so soft they are almost just breath. Xiaoying offers a slow, sleepy smile in return. The mother then moves to her son. She brushes a lock of hair from his forehead. "Xiaofeng," she murmurs, "the morning is here." He groans, a low, guttural sound of protest, and burrows his face into his pillow. His mother smiles, allowing him this small rebellion. She knows he needs this moment of transition. Instead of forcing him up, she begins to open the wooden shutters. Daylight floods the room, golden and undeniable. The boy squints, one eye cracking open to assess the intruding brightness. The battle is lost. With a great, dramatic heave, he rolls onto his back and stares at the ceiling, allowing wakefulness to settle into his bones. The ritual of rising is guided by gentle, patient hands. They are led to the wash basin in the courtyard. The water, drawn fresh from the well, is shockingly cold on their sleep-warm skin. Xiaoying gasps a sharp, delighted intake of breath. Xiaofeng splashes his face vigorously, shaking his head like a wet puppy, droplets flying. The cold is an electric shock that finishes the job of waking, scouring away the last cobwebs of dreams. Their mother helps them dry, rubbing their faces and hands with a soft, rough cloth. Now, still in the courtyard under the gentle morning sun, the learning begins. But it does not look like learning. There are no books, no slates, no stern instructions. The father, having finished his own preparations, joins them. He carries a shallow, wide basket and sets it on the ground. It is filled with yesterday's harvest, a mix of smooth river stones, dried beans of different sizes, and small, twisted twigs. "Xiaofeng," he says, his voice calm, "sort these. The stones with the stones, the beans with the beans, the wood with the wood." It is a simple task, almost menial, but it is a lesson in observation, in categorization, in patient hand-eye coordination. The boy crouches, his brow furrowing in concentration. His small hands move among the objects, feeling their different textures, the cool smoothness of stone, the hard oval of a bean, the rough bark of a twig. He begins to make piles, his movements slow and deliberate. For Xiaoying, the lesson is even simpler. The mother brings a small bowl of water and a dry brush. "Paint the stones," she says. "Give them a drink." The little girl dips the brush and carefully strokes it over a gray stone. She watches, fascinated. As the dark water transforms the stone's color, making it shine, she learns about absorption, about change, about the transformative power of even the simplest elements. Her focus is absolute, her tiny tongue peeking from the corner of her mouth. The father watches his son, not interfering. When Xiaofeng mistakenly puts a large round bean in the stone pile, he does not correct him immediately. He waits. The boy's own sense of order catches the error. He pauses, picks up the bean, holds it in his palm, and looks at his stone pile. He feels the difference. A look of understanding crosses his face, and he moves the bean to the correct pile. The lesson is learned more deeply because he discovered it himself. The mother, meanwhile, shows Xiaoying how to hold the brush properly, not to correct her, but to make the task easier. "Like this, my heart. Your hand will not tire." She guides the small fingers gently. The child's grip adjusts and she continues her painting with renewed ease. After a time, the tasks evolve. The father takes 3 stones from his son's pile. Which is heaviest? He asks. Xiaofeng picks them up, one in each hand, gauging their weight. He chooses one, his father nods, and now, which will roll the farthest? He places them on a slight incline in the courtyard. The boy experiments, pushing each one, watching their paths. He is learning physics through his hands and eyes, through trial and observation. Xiao Ying's water is now gone. Her mother gives her a dry cloth. Now, little gardener, dry your stones. Put the sun back on them. The girl diligently wipes each stone, placing them in a neat row to sunbathe. She is learning about evaporation, about care, about completing a cycle. Throughout this, there's very little talking. Instructions are soft, sparse. Corrections are gentle nudges, not reprimands. The primary language is the language of action, of observation, of silent imitation. The children learn by doing, by touching, by seeing the natural consequences of their actions. They are not being filled with information, but taught how to see the world, how to interact with it, thoughtfully and respectfully. The morning stretches on, the sun climbing higher, warming their backs. The simple tasks are completed. The sorted items are returned to the basket. Painted stones are dry and back in their place. No grand pronouncements are made about what was learned. The learning is in the calm focus of the children's faces, in the competent way Xiaofeng now handles the objects, in the careful precision of Xiao Ying's movements. Their mother brings them small cups of warm, mild tea. They sit together on the courtyard step, sipping in silence, watching a butterfly explore the jasmine vine. The lesson is over, but the learning continues, absorbed into their very beings. Becoming part of the quiet, capable people they are slowly, gently, becoming in the peaceful rhythm of the old Chinese town. As the children's focused energy settles from their tasks, a different quality of quiet descends upon the household. It is a quiet of gathering, of anticipation. The grandfather, old Master Chen, has been observing the morning as activities from his carved wooden chair in the shaded corner of the main room. His stillness is not passive, it is a deep, attentive presence. Now, as the mother clears away the children as sorting basket and the father puts his tools by the door, the elder moves. It is not a quick motion. He places both hands on the arms of the chair, pushes down gently, and rises with a soft exhalation. His body unfolds with the careful deliberation of a well-worn, precious scroll being opened. He does not speak. He simply turns and walks with a slow, measured pace that seems to honor the ground beneath each step toward the courtyard. He moves to his favorite spot, a worn stone bench nestled beneath the old plum tree. The tree's gnarled trunk and spreading branches create a canopy of dappled light and shadow. He sits, his spine straight, his hands resting palms down on his knees. He closes his eyes and breathes in deeply through his nose, holding the air scented with damp earth, plum leaves, and distant wood smoke for a long moment before releasing it in a slow, audible stream. This is his signal. The grandmother, who has been tidying the hearth, sees this. She wipes her hands on her apron, fills a small ceramic pot with hot water, and selects the cups. She carries them out on a simple wooden tray and places them on a low stool beside her husband. She pours the water over a handful of dried chrysanthemum flowers in one cup. A faint, clean, herbal aroma immediately lifts into the air, distinct from the other morning scents. She then sits beside him on the bench, her movements stiff but graceful, her own eyes softening as she gazes at the garden wall. The children, sensing the shift in the household's gravity, are guided not by words but by a subtle glance from their mother. They come and sit cross-legged on the ground before the elders, on a mat laid over the cool stones. They know this ritual. There is no fidgeting, no squirming. They sit quietly, their small backs straight, their hands in their laps. They are not being forced into stillness, they are being invited into it. The atmosphere itself commands a peaceful reverence. For a long while, no one speaks. They simply sit. The grandfather breathes, the children breathe. They listen to the sounds that the busyness of the morning had masked. Precise chirp of a single cricket in the stone wall, the almost imperceptible rustle of a leaf detaching from the plum tree, and spiraling down, the faint, metallic hum of the day's growing heat. This shared silence is the first lesson. It teaches patience. It teaches how to be present without needing to do anything. The silence has settled deeply into the space. The grandfather opens his eyes. He does not look at the children directly, but at the pattern of light and shadow dancing on the ground near his feet. See the shadow of that leaf, he says, his voice a dry, soft rustle like pages turning in an old book. It is not a loud voice, but it carries perfectly in the quiet. It moves, but does the leaf move? The children look. The shadow trembles slightly. The leaf is still. The grandfather continues after a pause. It is the sun that travels. The shadow only receives the story of the journey. He lets this sit. There is no explanation, no test. It is an observation offered like a gift. The children look from the still leaf above to its dancing shadow below, their young minds grappling with the concept of cause, an effect of stillness and motion, of being an observer of a grand, slow story. The grandmother now moves. She lifts the cup of chrysanthemum tea, now a pale gold color, and hands it first to Xiao Feng. Sip, she instructs softly. Do not drink. Taste the sky. Taste the autumn sun that dried these flowers. The boy takes the cup carefully with both hands. He brings it to his lips and takes a small sip, as instructed. He holds it in his mouth, his eyes widening slightly at the gentle, bittersweet flavor, so different from water or rice soup. He is learning that drinking can be an act of attention, of tasting not just a liquid, but a season, a process. She then offers the cup to Xiaoying, who mimics her brother. The grandmother watches their faces. The flower gives its color, its scent, its medicine to the water, she murmurs. It does not hold back. That is its purpose, to give itself away completely. This, too, is a lesson about generosity, about transformation, about the purpose found in surrender to one's nature. The grandfather's gaze shifts from the ground to the sturdy trunk of the plum tree. He reaches out and places his aged hand against its bark, feeling its ridges and grooves. This tree was here when my grandfather was a boy, he says. It was struck by lightning once. See this scar running down here like a white river. The children lean forward to see the long jagged mark in the bark. It lost a great branch. It was silent for a whole season. We thought it had died. He pauses, his fingers tracing the scar, but the next spring it bloomed more fiercely than ever. It had learned where its true strength was, not in the branch that reached high, but in the deep roots and in the silent heart of its trunk. He is not telling a fable. He is telling a true story about a tree they see every day. The lesson is about resilience, about hidden strength, about loss and recovery. It is given not as a moral, but as a simple fact of the world, waiting for them to understand it in their own time, in their own way. The grandmother takes the empty cup back. Everything speaks, she says. Her voice even softer than her husband's. The tea speaks of the flower and the sun. The tree speaks of lightning and time. The shadow speaks of the sun's journey. To live well is to learn to listen. She looks at each child in turn, her eyes warm and deep. Listen to the house creak. It is telling you it is waking up. Listen to your own breath. It is telling you that you are here. The wisdom session does not end with a conclusion. It simply dissipates like mist yielding to the sun. The grandfather closes his eyes again, returning to his meditation. The grandmother stands, picks up the tray, and returns to the house. The children are left sitting on the mat. The elders' quiet words and the profound silence that held them settling into their young spirits. They have not been given rules to memorize, but eyes to see and ears to hear the deep, whispering wisdom woven into the very fabric of their ordinary morning in the shade of an old plum tree, but the quiet wisdom of the elders still hanging in the air like the faint scent of chrysanthemum. The energy of the household shifts once more. The profound stillness gives way to a gentle, purposeful hum, the sound of maintenance, of care, of hands tending to the small world of the home. The time for lessons under the plum tree is over. Now begins the time of making and mending, the steady rhythm of chores that sustains the family's physical world. The mother, Mei Lin, moves to the center of the main room. She brings out a large, flat winnowing basket, its woven bamboo surface worn smooth and pale. Into it, she pours a small mound of dried rice from a ceramic storage jar, the day's portion. The grains make a soft, cascading whisper like distant rain. She kneels on a cushion beside the basket, her posture straight and comfortable. This is her station. Her hands, capable and calm, dive into the pale sea of rice. Her fingers move with a practiced, sifting motion, parting, lifting, letting grains fall through. She is not just measuring rice, she is cleaning it. Her eyes, sharp and patient, scan for tiny impurities, a fragment of husk, a small stone, a discolored grain. When she finds one, Her fingers pinch it with precise efficiency and flick it into a small dish at her side. The sound is a soft, repetitive shush, shush, shush of grain against grain, punctuated by the occasional faint click of a pebble being discarded. It is monotonous work, but her face shows no boredom, only a serene focus. In this rhythmic, tactile task, her mind finds a peaceful blankness, a meditation in motion. Nearby, her daughter Xiaoying is given her own small chore. She sits on a lower cushion with a wooden bowl in her lap. Inside are a handful of dried beans. Her task is simple: find the broken ones. Her small fingers, still clumsy compared to her mother's, pick through the beans one by one. She holds each up to the light from the window, squinting, her tongue peeking out in concentration. When she finds a bean split in half, she places it carefully in her own tiny dish. Her progress is slow, her movements deliberate. She is learning attention to detail, learning the satisfaction of a task completed thoroughly, no matter how small. The only sounds are the quiet tap of beans against wood and her soft, focused breaths. In the shaded part of the courtyard, a different kind of work is underway. Father Lao Chen and his son Xiao Feng are engaged in a craft. Before them lies the skeleton of a new basket. Vertical strands of soaked bamboo, pliable and yellow, are held in tension by a wooden frame. Lao Chen's large, scarred hands hold the structure steady. Xiao Feng's job is to weave the horizontal strand. His father has already started the pattern over, under, over, under. The boy takes the long, flexible bamboo strip in his hands. He tries to mimic the motion, but his strip goes under when it should go over. Pattern snags. Look with your hands, not just your eyes, Lao Chen murmurs, his voice low. Feel where it wants to go. Xiao Feng pauses. He closes his eyes for a second, his small fingers feeling the tension of the vertical strands, the path of the previous weave. He opens his eyes, repositions the strip, and tries again. This time, it slides through correctly over, under, over. The bamboo emits a soft, fibrous creak as it bends to his will. A smile touches the boy's lips, a flash of pure, quiet triumph. His father nods once, a silent approval. The work continues. Creak, slide, tap. Creak, slide, tap. The sound is a gentle, percussive rhythm, the sound of creation and progress. They do not speak. Their communication is in the shared focus, in the slight adjustments of grip, in the synchronized breathing of makers deep in their craft. Back inside, another craft is being resurrected. The grandmother has brought out a mending basket, and in her worn garments a tunic with a torn sleeve, a sock with a thinning heel, a quilt cover with a loose seam. She selects the sock and a needle threaded with gray yarn. Her old eyes need no spectacles. Her hands, though knotted with arthritis, remember their skill with miraculous clarity. The needle flashes in the light as she begins, her stitches small, even, and incredibly strong. She does not just close the hole, she reinforces the entire heel with a dense, invisible weave that will outlast the original fabric. This is not repair, it is renewal. Each stitch is a tiny act of defiance against time and wear. A whisper that says this useful thing will live a little longer. The sounds of the household form a quiet symphony, the shushing of rice, the tapping of beans, the creak and tap of basket weaving, the soft pull of thread through cloth. Underneath it all is the constant, low crackle of the hearth fire, where a pot of water simmers for the next pot of tea. There's no radio, no conversation to fill the silence. The silence is already fulfilled with the purposeful sounds of hands at work. There is no hurry. One glances at a clock. The sun, arcing across the paper windows, is their timepiece. A chore is done when it is done well, not when a timer rings. Xiaoying finally empties her bowl of beans, every broken one found. She looks up at her mother, who pauses her winnowing to inspect the bowl. Maylin runs her fingers through the remaining whole beans, finds no faults, and smiles. Good eyes, little one, she says. The praise is quiet, but the little girl beams. At the courtyard, the basket grows row by patient row. Xiao Feng's motions are becoming smoother. More confident, the pattern is becoming part of his muscle memory. He and his father work in a bubble of shared concentration, their world reduced to the weave. The tension, the growing form taking shape under their hands. This is the economy of the old home. Nothing is wasted, not time, not material, not skill. Broken bean will go to the chickens. The rice husks will feed the fire. The old sock will walk again. The new basket will carry vegetables from the garden. Every action is connected. Every chore a thread in the continuous tapestry of their life. The work is not a burden to be rushed through, but a rhythm to be lived within. A daily practice focus of care that sustains the body, calms the mind, and quietly, stitch by stitch, weave by weave, holds their small world securely together. Profound change comes over the old town as the sun climbs to its zenith. It is a change felt first as a thickening of the air, a slowing of the breeze, a deepening of the shadows until they become small, dark pools directly beneath objects. The light, which in the morning was gentle and slanting, now falls straight down, a white gold weight that presses upon the clay tiles, the stone paths, the still leaves. The sounds of the morning, the distant calls, the rhythmic pounding, the creak of carts one by one cease. It is as if the town itself draws in a long, slow breath and holds it. Inside the Chin household, the steady symphony of chores reaches its natural conclusion. The last of the rice is poured back into its storage jar with a final, soft rush. The mending needle is stuck securely into its pink cushion. The new basket, still smelling of fresh-cut bamboo, is set aside in a cool, dark corner to dry and set its shape. Hands are washed in a basin of now tepid water. The day's first layer of dust and effort rinsed away. There is no announcement, no discussion. The transition is as natural as the tide receding. The woven floor mats, which had been pushed aside for work, are now unrolled in the coolest, most shaded part of the main room. This area, away from the direct glare of the windows, is a sanctuary of dimness. The bright stripes of sunlight that cut across the floorboards stop just short of this space. As if respecting its boundary, the family gathers here, not for a meal or a meeting, but for a collective surrender to the day's peak. The father, Lao Chen, leans his back against a cool plaster wall, letting his head tip back. He closes his eyes, and the lines of concentration and guidance that marked his face during the morning as teaching and crafting soften, then disappear. His hands lie open at his sides, palms up. Completely relaxed, his breathing deepens, becoming slower than even his sleep breath, a long, slow rhythm of pure rest. He is not sleeping, but he is very far away, in a place of inner stillness where the heat and the light cannot reach. Malin lies on her side on a mat, one arm curled beneath her head as a pillow. She faces the dim interior of the room, away from the bright windows. Her body, which moved with such efficient grace all morning, is now utterly still, a long, soft curve against the matting. Her eyes are closed, her lips slightly parted. The shallow, dream-filled flutters of nighttime sleep are absent. This is a deeper, more conscious rest, a willful quieting of the body and mind. The rise and fall of her ribs is barely perceptible. The children, whose energy usually resists such stillness, are overcome by the palpable atmosphere of quiet. Xiao Feng lies on his stomach, his cheek pressed against the smooth, cool tatami. He stares at the intricate weave of the mat just inches from his eyes, following a single strand of rush grass. As it disappears and reappears in the pattern, his blinking slows. The intense focus he applied to basket weaving now turns inward, his active mind growing calm and diffuse. His limbs grow heavy. A long, silent sigh escapes him as he finally closes his eyes. Little Xiaoyin curls herself against her mother's back, a small comma of comfort. She holds her cloth rabbit loosely, her thumb resting near its missing eye. She is awake, but her movements are limited to the slow, gentle stroking of the rabbit's ear. Her gaze is soft, unfocused, watching the dust motes dance in the single sunbeam that has dared to penetrate their shaded retreat. She is learning the quiet art of doing nothing, of simply being present in the stillness. In the loft above, the grandfather's shallow, poor sleep deepens into something more substantial. The midday lull smooths the rattling edges. From his breath, pauses between inhales and exhales grow more regular, more peaceful. Even the house itself seems to join the rest. The thermal expansion that caused tiny creaks and pops has ceased in the uniform heat. The building is still, holding its breath along with its inhabitants. The silence is absolute, yet profoundly alive. It is not the empty silence of an abandoned place, but the full, resonant silence of many beings resting together. It is a silence you can lean into. It holds the soft, rhythmic breath of the father, the almost imperceptible whisper of the mother's exhalation, the faint, wet sound of the little girl sucking gently on her thumb. It holds the distant, drowsy buzz of a single fly trapped against a window pane, the far-off, liquid coo of a pigeon from a neighbor's roof, the slow, heavy pulse of one's own heartbeat in one's ears. Time ceases to have meaning. The sun does not seem to move in the sky. Bright parallelogram of light on the floor does not creep. Everything is suspended in a warm amber haze. This is the sacred pause at the center of the day, a necessary void between the morning's doing and the afternoon's being. It is a time for the body to integrate its efforts, for the mind to release its gentle hold on tasks and plans, for the spirit to simply inhabit its vessel without demand or direction. No thoughts of future chores intrude. No memories of the morning's lessons replay. The mind is allowed to be as still as the body. In this collective, wordless agreement to rest, the family finds a deeper connection than in any conversation. They are a single organism breathing together, existing together in a state of perfect, undemanding peace. The heat outside intensifies, beating upon the roof tiles, but inside, in their shaded cocoon of stillness, a deep, cool calm reigns. The midday rest is not an escape from the day, but its very heart is silent, beating core of stillness around which the gentle activities of morning and evening can peacefully revolve. The midday stillness breaks not with a sound, but with a subtle shift in the quality of the light. The white vertical glare begins to soften, acquiring a faint golden tint as the sun starts its long, slow arc toward the western hills. The sharp, short shadows under the eaves and trees stretch, elongating like lazy cats. Inside the shaded room, the family stirs from their collective rest, not all at once, but one by one, each returning to wakefulness at their own private pace. The father, Lao Chen, is first. He opens his eyes and for a full minute simply gazes at the wooden ceiling beams above him, his mind clear and empty. He then sits up slowly, stretching his arms over his head until his joints release a series of soft, satisfying pops. He stands, walks to the water jar, and drinks a long, slow dipperful, the coolness waking his body fully. He moves to the doorway and looks out at the courtyard. The heat is still present, but it is no longer a pressing weight. It is a warm blanket, comfortable and familiar. His movement acts as a gentle signal. Maylin opens her eyes, watches her husband for a moment, then sits up, smoothing her hair and clothes. She does not immediately rise to work. She goes to the doorway, standing beside him, sharing the view of the sun-dappled courtyard in companionable silence. They are not rushing to start the next thing. They are acclimating to the changed rhythm of the afternoon. The children wake more gradually. Xiaofeng rolls onto his back, yawns a wide, silent yawn, and blinks up at the ceiling. The deep rest has left him calm, his usual frenetic energy muted into a placid readiness. Xiaoying sits up, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists, her cloth wrappet still clutched in one hand. She crawls to her mother's legs and leans against them, not yet fully verbal, seeking the comfort of contact as she transitions. The pace is set now, slow, fluid, without urgency. Lao Chen does not return to the heavy bamboo work. Instead, he takes a small, handheld sickle and walks to the far edge of their small garden. He kneels among the rows of leafy greens, not to harvest in earnest, but to tend. He carefully selects a few yellowing outer leaves from the spinach plants and snips them off, dropping them into a small basket for the chickens. He checks the ties on the bean vines, making a minor adjustment here and there. His movements are meditative, unhurried. This is not a chore with a finish line. It is a quiet communion, but the growing things a way to be useful while still holding the afternoon's calm within. Himself, Mei Lin, inside, engages in a similar type of activity. She brings out a large earthenware bowl and a sack of dried soybeans. She pours a measure of beans into the bowl and begins to sort through them, her hands moving with a slow, repetitive grace. This sorting is less about cleansing than about selection, choosing the plumpest, most perfect beans for a special batch of tofu later in the week. It is a task that requires attention but no strain, its rhythm perfectly suited to the lulling hour. Xiaoying sits at her feet, playing with the discarded, imperfect beans, arranging them into patterns on the floor. Xiaofeng, now fully awake, is drawn outside by the sound of other children. The heavy silence of noon has lifted from the village lane, replaced by a soft, ambient hum of low activity. He steps out of the courtyard gate and stands for a moment listening. From a few houses down comes the sound of light. Breathless laughter, two girls playing a clapping game in a shaded doorway. Further along, an old man sits on a stool, slowly, rhythmically sharpening a knife on a stone. The SHHH-SHHH-SHHH sound regular and soothing. Xiaofeng does not run to join any games. He walks slowly down the lane, his feet bare on the warm, smooth stones. He nods to the old man, who pauses his sharpening to give the boy a slow, cap-toothed smile. The boy stops to watch a line of ants carrying a crumb of rice cake 10 times their size, their progress a determined, zigzagging march. He squats down, his shadow falling across their path, and watches them for a long time, fascinated by their silent, collective purpose. Back in the Chin courtyard, the soft sounds of the village drift over the wall, a snatch of conversation from two women washing vegetables at the communal pump, the distant melodic call of a street vendor selling sweet rice cakes, his voice drawn out and languid in the heat, the occasional creak of a bicycle as someone makes a slow, unhurried journey down the main lane. Inside, Maylin finishes her bean sorting. She does not immediately put the bowl away. She sits back on her heels, her hands resting in her lap, and simply listens to the sounds of her family and her town. She hears her husband's gentle snip-snip in the garden, her daughter's quiet murmuring to her bean patterns, the distant, happy sounds of children. A deep sense of contentment settles in her chest. This is the sound of life proceeding as it should, gently, communally, without rush or alarm. The afternoon is not for achievement. It is for gentle activity, for maintenance, for being present within the community's soft hum. It is a bridge between the focused work of morning and the inward turning closeness of evening. Hands move, voices murmur, feet pad softly on stone, but there is no collective hurry, no tension in the air. The sunlight is kinder now, the shadows are longer, and every action, no matter how small, is performed with a quiet awareness that there is plenty of time to watch ants, time to sort beans with care, time to share a silent smile with a neighbor, time to simply exist within the warm, slow heartbeat of the old town as it breathes through the tranquil afternoon. As the afternoon's golden light begins to deepen into the long, slanting rays of early evening, the focus of the household turns inward and converges on a single warm point, the hearth. The gentle, diffuse activities of the afternoon gradually wind down, and a new, fragrant purpose begins to fill the air. This is the quiet ceremony of preparing the evening meal, a daily ritual that is as much about gathering as it is about cooking. Maylin is the first to shift fully into this new mode. She rises from her sorting and goes to the small pantry alcove, a cool, dark space lined with shelves of pottery and bamboo containers. Her movements are deliberate, almost reverent, as she gathers ingredients. From a tall jar, she scoops a measure of white rice, the grains flowing through her fingers with a soft, dry whisper. She selects a few dried shiitake mushrooms from a basket, their caps leathery and dark. From a ceramic crock, she takes a piece of cured tofu, firm and pale. Bunch of fresh greens from the morning's garden harvest, still slightly damp, is retrieved from a bowl of water in the coolest corner. She lays each item on the low kitchen table, a small, colorful assembly of the day's bounty. Meanwhile, Lao Chen returns from the garden with his small basket. In it are a few additional treasures, a handful of crisp snow peas, a single, perfect purple eggplant, a few stalks of green onion with their roots still clinging to a bit of earth. He places these beside his wife's collection without a word, their contributions merging seamlessly. He then moves to the hearth, stirring the bank timbers from the noon fire back to life with a few pieces of kindling. The dry wood catches with a friendly crackle, and soon a low, steady flame is dancing, casting a warm, orange glow on the clay surround and the black iron pot that hangs above it. Now the true alchemy begins. Maylin brings a heavy, seasoned cutting board to the table. She takes up her kitchen knife, its blade worn thin from years of sharpening, and begins to slice. The sounds are crisp and clean in the quiet room. The thud of the knife through the firm tofu, slicing it into neat, white cubes. The softer crunch as she chops the greens into manageable lengths. The snick as she minces the green onions into tiny, aromatic rings. Each vegetable speaks with a different voice under her blade. Lao Chen adds his own notes to the symphony. He uses a smaller knife to carefully testering the snow peas, producing a faint, fibrous tearing sound. He peels the eggplant with quick, precise strokes, purple skin curling away in long strips. His hands are large and calloused from outdoor work, but they are surprisingly deft with the delicate tasks of food preparation. As they work, the first scents begin to bloom. The dried mushrooms, now soaking in a bowl of warm water, release a deep, earthy, umami fragrance that seems to anchor the other smells. Cut green onions give off a bright, pungent note, the fresh green smell of chlorophyll and the AMP soil. With the ingredients prepared, Maylin turns to the now hot cooking pot. She pours a thin stream of sesame oil from a small bottle, The oil hits the hot iron with an immediate, quiet sizzle, a sound of promise. She adds the minced onions first. They dance in the oil, their sharp aroma mellowing and sweetening instantly, filling the room with a scent that is universally recognized as the beginning of something good. Next go in the cubed tofu. They land with a soft patter and begin to sear, their edges turning a gentle gold. She lets them sit undisturbed for a minute, allowing a crisp skin to form. Then, with a wooden spatula, she gently turns them. The sound is a soft scrape and shuffle. She adds the softened mushrooms and their soaking liquid, which hits the hot pot with a louder, enthusiastic hiss that quickly settles into a steady, bubbling simmer. Lao Chen brings the prepared vegetables. The sliced eggplant and snow peas are added to the pot. He pours in a ladle of water from the always simmering kettle. The intense sizzle subsides, replaced by the softer, wetter sound of ingredients stewing together. Maylin adds a pinch of salt from a stone jar, a dash of soy sauce from a dark bottle, a spoonful of fermented bean paste from a crock. She gives the mixture one slow, circular stir with her spatula, blending the flavors, the motion unhurried and confident. Finally, she arranges the chopped greens on top of the simmering stew. Like laying a green blanket over the pot, she covers it with a heavy wooden lid, which settles with a soft final thump. The loudest sounds are over. Now, the meal enters its quiet transformation phase. From under the lid comes a steady, comforting pock, pock, pock of bubbles rising and breaking at the surface, and the occasional whisper of escaping steam. Rich, complex aroma of the cooking stew begins to permeate every corner of the house, savory, salty, earthy, and warm. Xiao Feng and Xiao Ying, drawn by the sounds and smells, wander into the main room and sit nearby, watching the pot as if it were a living creature breathing softly on the hearth. Their parents work together now to set the low table, placing bowls, spoons, and chopsticks in a neat arrangement, wiping the surface clean with a damp cloth. There is no frantic energy, no last-minute panic. The preparation has been a slow, collaborative dance, each step known and respected. The work of their hands, from the garden and the pantry to the cutting board and the pot, is now yielding its reward, not just in the food that will nourish their bodies, but in the shared purpose, familiar routine, and the warm, fragrant air that wraps around the family, drawing them together in quiet anticipation of the evening meal. Pok pok from the cooking pot slows to a languid, occasional blub. A final, fragrant plume of steam escapes from under the wooden lid, carrying the deep, savory scent of the finished stew throughout the house. This is the silent dinner bell. Maylin moves to the hearth, and using a thick cloth to protect her hands, she lifts the heavy lid. A cloud of aromatic steam billows up, momentarily obscuring her face before dissipating into the warm room. The stew within glistens, the tofu cubes now golden and swollen with flavor. The eggplant meltingly soft, the greens a vibrant, cooked jade, the broth a rich, translucent brown. She places the lid aside and gives the stew one last gentle stir, bringing the ingredients from the bottom to the top. The sound is a soft, wet shuffle. Lao Chen brings the large, deep serving bowl to the hearth, and with careful, steady hands, she ladles the steaming contents from the iron pot into the ceramic vessel. The ladle clanks softly against the sides. The transfer complete, he carries the bowl, radiating warmth, to the low table that has been set in the center of the room. The family gathers around the table, not with a scramble for seats, but with a slow, natural convergence. They kneel or sit cross-legged on cushions placed around its four sides. The grandfather is helped to his place at the head, a position of honor that requires no words. The grandmother sits to his right. Lao Chen and Mei Lin take the other sides, with the children settling in between the adults. There is a moment of collective stillness as they look at the food before them, the steam rising in. Then, twisting ribbons, the colors of the harvest pulled together. Mei Lin serves the rice first. Using a flat wooden paddle, she portions fluffy white mounds into each bowl, starting with the grandfather, then the grandmother, then her husband, the children, and finally herself. The soft rice lands with a quiet thump. Next, she ladles the stew over the rice in each bowl, ensuring everyone receives a bit of each ingredient: a cube of tofu, a piece of eggplant, a mushroom, some greens, and plenty of the fragrant broth. The ladle drips and the broth seeps into the white rice, staining it a delicious brown. No one begins to eat. They wait. The grandfather looks around the table at each family member, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He gives a single, slow nod. This is the signal. Together, they raise their chopsticks. First sounds of the meal are the gentle clicks of porcelain and wood as chopsticks meet bowls. There is no clatter. The silence is not of emptiness, but of deep, focused appreciation. First bite is taken almost in unison. It is a moment of pure sensory pleasure. The warmth of the food, the complex melding of salty, savory, and sweet flavors. The contrasting textures of soft rice, firm tofu, and silky eggplant. Eyes closed briefly, small, appreciative hums vibrate in throats. For a long minute, there is only the soft sounds of eating, the gentle scraping of chopsticks gathering rice, the quiet sloop of broth being sipped from a spoon, the soft crunch of a snow pea. Conversation begins only after this initial respectful communion with the food. It does not erupt. It seeps in like the broth into the rice. The eggplant is perfect tonight, Lao Chen says to his wife, his voice warm, sweet from the garden soil. Malin smiles, a faint blush of pride coloring her cheeks. The soil was good this year, she acknowledges softly. Xiao Feng, his mouth full, points his chopsticks at a particularly large mushroom in his bowl. This one looks like a little umbrella, he mumbles around the food. Then it will keep your rice dry, his grandfather replies, his tone playfully solemn. A ripple of soft laughter moves around the table. Xiao Ying is more interested in the mechanics than the conversation. She struggles with her chopsticks, a piece of tofu repeatedly slipping away. Her father watches her efforts for a moment, then without a word, he demonstrates with his own, slowing the motion down. Like this, he says gently, not a pinch, more like a bridge. She watches, mimics, and finally succeeds in transporting the tofu to her mouth. Her triumphant grin is met with smiling eyes from all the adults. The talk that follows is as gentle and nourishing as the food. They speak of small things. The grandmother mentions the color of the sky at dusk. The father talks about a bird's nest he noticed in the plum tree. The mother asks Xiao Feng what pattern the ants made today. The stories are simple, the observations quiet. There is no debate, no problem solving, no planning for tomorrow. This is a space for sharing the tiny, beautiful fragments of the day that have lodged in their memories. Bowls are emptied slowly, and seconds are offered with a glance. Nods are exchanged. More stew is ladled, more rice is served. The pace remains leisurely. The meal is not a race to satiation, but a prolonged experience of shared sustenance. As they eat, the last of the daylight fades from the paper windows, turning them from glowing gold squares to muted gray. The room grows dimmer, cozier. The warm glow from the hearth becomes the primary light, flickering gently on their faces, making the scene feel ancient and timeless. When the final bites are taken, there is a collective sense of fullness, not just of stomachs, but of spirits. Chopsticks are laid neatly across empty bowls. A few moments of comfortable silence follow, a digesting of both food and fellowship. The family dinner is more than a meal. It is the daily reuniting of the familial bond, a silent affirmation that no matter what the day held, they return to this circle, to this shared bowl, to this quiet, comforting conversation. Under the fading light, nourished in every sense, the empty bowls are cleared away, the table wiped clean with a damp cloth. But the family does not disperse. The warm, contented fullness from the meal settles over them like a soft blanket, encouraging stillness and closeness. The dim, flickering light from the hearth is now the room's only illumination, carving a small, intimate circle of warmth and shadow around their gathered forms. The world outside the paper windows is a deep, velvety blue, and the sounds of the village have softened to a distant, indistinct murmur. This is the hour for stories, for the gentle unraveling of the day's hidden threads. The children, sleepy from food and the descending dark, nestle close to the adults. Xiao Ying rests her head in her mother's lap, her eyes heavy-lidded but refusing to close. Not wanting to miss a moment, Xiao Feng sits cross-legged, leaning his back against his father's side. Finding comfort in the solid, warm presence, the grandparents sit side by side, their silhouettes merging into a single, wide shape against the faint firelight. Conversation begins not with a question, but with a shared memory of the fading light. The sky was the color of a bruised night, the grandmother says softly, her voice like dry leaves rustling. A deep purple where it met the hills. It reminded me of the dye vats we used to have when the town still made its own cloth. This simple observation opens a door. The grandfather nods slowly, gazing into the low flames. The vats were by the western stream, he adds, picking up the thread. The water there ran cold. Even in summer, it set the color fast. I remember the smell bitter and earthy, not an unpleasant smell, a smell of work. They are not telling a dramatic tale. They are painting a shared picture of a world that exists now only in their memories and in this nightly act of remembrance. The children listen, their imaginations coloring in the gaps. Xiao Feng imagines the huge vats, the steam, the men with arms stained blue and purple. Encouraged by the elders sharing, Lao Chen offers a fragment from his own day. I saw the kingfisher today, he says, his voice a low rumble. Down by the old irrigation ditch. Flash of blue, like a piece of the sky had broken off and fallen into the reeds. It was gone before I could blink. A lucky sight, his mother murmurs. A sign of clean water. Mei Lin smiles in the gloom. The kingfisher's speed always surprised me, she says. So still one moment, a bolt of lightning the next, she strokes her daughter's hair. It reminded me of how you run, Xiao Feng, when you think no one is watching. All sudden energy and purpose, the boy squirms, pleased at being included in the tapestry of the day's observations. He thinks for a moment, then offers his own piece. The ants today, they were carrying a moth wing. A big, gray one. It was like a sail for them. They kept getting stuck, then going again. His grandfather chuckles, a soft, gravelly sound. Even the smallest creatures have their burdens, he says. And their determination, the observation is not a moral lesson, merely a note on the nature of things offered for the children to consider. Now, Xiao Ying, who has been quietly absorbing everything, speaks. Her voice is a tiny whisper in the firelit dark. My bean, the broken one, it looked like a little boat. She had spent the afternoon playing with the discarded beans. I made it sail in the wash basin. Her father squeezes her shoulder gently. And where did your bean boat sail to, little one? To the island of the rice grain, she whispers. Her imagination making it perfectly real for her in that moment. The stories continue, each person offering a small, polished stone from the stream of their day. The mother speaks of the pattern of clouds at noon. The father mentions the feel of the bamboo, finally pliable after soaking. Grandmother recalls the exact note of a particular bird call. Conversation is a slow, meandering stream, not a rushing river. There are long pauses between contributions. Space is filled by the crackle of the fire and the shared, comfortable silence. No one interrupts, no one corrects. Each memory, each observation is treated as a gift laid gently on the hearth of their togetherness. The children's contributions grow slower, their speech slurred with approaching sleep. The adults' voices grow softer, more reflective. The stories begin to blend. The day's events weaving together into a single, soft narrative of their shared life, a narrative not of great events, but of noticed details, a color, a sound, a struggle, a moment of beauty. This is how history is passed down in this home, not in dates and battles, but in the texture of a remembered dye, the flash of a bird's wing, the determined journey of ants, the imagined voyage of a broken bean. The fire burns lower, the circle of light shrinks, the evening conversations wind down to a final, peaceful quiet. The stories have been told, the day has been given its shape and meaning through shared words. The family sits in the gathering dark, connected not just by blood, but by the invisible threads of these softly spoken memories, woven together in the safety of the hearth light, holding the cool night at bay. The last ember of shared conversation fades into the comfortable silence. But the darkness in the room is no longer a passive presence. It is deepened, becoming a tangible velvet that presses against the paper windows. The hearth fire, which has been their sun, has dimmed to a bed of pulsating crimson coals, providing warmth but little light. It is time to invite a gentler, more mobile sun inside. Mei Lin rises quietly and goes to the wooden cabinet. From a shelf, she retrieves a simple lantern. It is made of bamboo and paper, its frame lightweight and delicate. She carries it to the hearth and, using a thin strip of kindling, coaxes a small, bright flame from the embers. She touches this flame to the lantern's wick, which rests in a shallow dish of oil. The wick catches, flickers uncertainly for a moment, then steadies into a small, perfect teardrop of yellow light. She carefully slides the paper shade down over the bamboo frame, and instantly, the flame is transformed. Its light becomes soft, diffuse, and golden, radiating outward in a warm, gentle sphere that pushes back the dark just enough to define their immediate world. She hangs the lantern from a hook suspended from a ceiling beam. It now hangs above the center of the room, a miniature moon in their personal night sky. Its effect is magical. The harsh shadows cast by the earlier fire are gone. Now everything is bathed in a soft, buttery glow. Faces are rendered in gentle curves and planes. Grain of the wooden floorboards becomes a subtle, flowing pattern. The edges of furniture soften, blending into the surrounding gloom. The lantern sways almost imperceptibly in a draft, causing the pool of light on the floor to breathe, growing slightly, then receding, making the shadows on the wall sway in a slow, silent dance. But the primary light source changed, the soundscape of the night begins to assert itself. As if the darkness had been holding its breath, the first sound to arrive is not from outside, but from the house itself. The cooling of the day's heat causes the wooden beams and planks to contract. They sigh and creak, gentle complaints that are the building's own lullaby. A different tile on the roof settles with a faint clink. These are familiar, friendly sounds. The house talking in its sleep. Then the outside world whispers through the walls. The most persistent sound is the chorus of crickets. Is not a single sound, but a layered, shimmering tapestry of chirps, some high and metallic, others lower and more rhythmic. They pulse in waves, rising to a vibrant crescendo before ebbing back to a softer hum, a relentless, soothing rhythm that forms the bedrock of the night's audio. A new sound weaves through the cricket song, the soft, liquid plink, plop of the last of the day as moisture dripping from the leaves of the courtyard. Plum tree into the collection jar below. Each drop is a clear, solitary note in the insect symphony. Further away, beyond the courtyard wall, the village offers its own muted contributions. A dog barks once, a half-hearted sound, as if it too is too tired for a full-throated announcement. The sound is swallowed quickly by the night. Somewhere, a loose shutter taps gently, patiently against the wall with the breeze tap. Pause, tap. It is a sound of loneliness, but also of steadfastness, but the true voice of the night is the wind. It is not a howling wind, but a sighing presence. It moves through the bamboo grove on the hill behind the town, and the sound it makes is a dry, papery rustle like 1,000 pages being turned slowly. It finds the cracks around the window frames and enters as a faint, cool stream, carrying with it the rich, damp smell of night soil and blooming night flowers. It makes the lantern above them sway just a little more, and the dance of shadows on the wall becomes a slow, graceful waltz. The family does not speak. They have moved past words into a deeper communion with the settling night. They sit within their island of lantern light, each person listening, watching. Lao Chen watches the shadows dance on the wall, his mind still. Malin's eyes are half closed, her breathing synchronized with the rhythmic pulse of the crickets Xiao Ying is already asleep in. Her lap lulled by the combined rhythm of her mother's heartbeat and the cricket song. Xiao Feng leans against his father, his eyes tracking the gentle swing of the lantern. Mesmerized by the living light, the grandfather's head is tilted, his good ear turned toward the window. He is not just hearing the sounds, he is deciphering them. Pattern of the cricket chirps tells him the temperature is dropping. The direction of the wind whispers of weather to come. The specific creak of a certain beam is an old friend checking in. For him, the night is not silent, but full of detailed conversation in this lantern-lit bubble. The outside world feels both near and infinitely far. The sounds are present, but they are framed, made part of the home's atmosphere. Crunch of a nocturnal animal's steps on dry leaves. The distant hoot of the owl reclaiming its territory, the occasional rustle from the chicken coop. These are not intrusions, but the perimeter guards of their peace sounds that define the safety of the lit circle they inhabit. The lantern flame gutters slightly, then steadies. The oil is burning cleanly. The light it casts is unwavering in its softness. It does not defeat the night. It negotiates with it. It creates a sanctuary of warmth and visibility, while respectfully allowing the deeper dark and its ancient sounds to remain just beyond the threshold. In this balance between the crafted, gentle light within and the vast, whispering darkness without, the family finds a profound sense of security and peace. Nestled in the heart of the sleeping town, the lantern has gentle sway and the symphony of night sounds have woven a spell of deep calm over the room, but for the children, this calm now pulls them toward a different realm. The day's gentle adventures, the sorting, the weaving, the ant watching, the stories have settled into their bones as a pleasant fatigue. Their eyelids, reflecting the soft lantern light, grow heavy. Blinks become longer. The moments of darkness behind closed lids stretching out until they threaten not to reopen. Xiao Ying is the first to fully succumb. She is already a soft weight in her mother's lap, her breathing having deepened into the slow, even rhythm of sleep. Her cloth rabbit is clutched loosely, It's one button eye staring blankly at the swaying shadows. Helen looks down at her daughter's face, smooth and innocent in repose, and smiles. With infinite care, she slides her arms under the small body, lifting her as if she were made of the most fragile porcelain. The child murmurs but does not wake, simply turning her head to nestle into the familiar curve of her mother's shoulder. Maylin carries her to the sleeping area where the quilts have already been unrolled and laid out in invitation. She kneels and, with one hand, deftly pulls back the top blanket. She lays Xiaoying down, gently prying the cloth wrappet from her grip just enough to tuck it beside her, then draws the quilt up to the child's chin. She leans down and places a kiss so light it is merely a warm breath on the girl's forehead. "Sleep among gentle dreams, little blossom," she whispers, her voice a breath even softer than the child. As own, this movement is the signal for Xiaofeng. He has been fighting sleep, lulled by the lantern's dance but fascinated by the shifting patterns. Now, seeing his sister carried to bed, his own resistance crumbles wide. Jaw-cracking yawn overtakes him, one he doesn't even try to suppress. His body slumps more heavily against his father's side. Lao Chen feels the change in his son's posture. He looks down at the boy's head, at the unruly hair sticking up in the lantern light. "The moon is climbing high, little shepherd," he says, his voice a low, soothing rumble. "Time to guide your dreams to pasture." He stands and with a gentle strength lifts his son into his arms. Xiaofeng, at 7, is almost too big for this, but in this twilight hour between wakefulness and sleep, he allows it, his body going limp with trust. His head lolls onto his father's shoulder. Lao Chen carries him to the sleeping mat beside his sister. The ritual is similar, but adjusted for a growing boy. Quilt is folded back. The boy is laid down. His father pulls off his outer tunic, leaving him in soft sleeping clothes, then covers him with the quilt, tucking the edges firmly around him, creating a cozy cocoon. "Did the ants finish carrying their sail?" Lao Chen asks softly, smoothing the hair from the boy's forehead. "MMHMM," Xiaofeng mumbles, his eyes already closed. "They got it home. Then your work of watching is done," his father says. "Now is time for your own journey." He places a broad, warm hand on the boy's chest, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath. He leaves it there for a long moment, a silent transfer of peace and protection before rising. Now, both children lie side by side, their faces pale ovals in the dim light, their breathing beginning to synchronize a slow in, a long pause, a synchronized out. The space around them seems to grow quieter, as if the house itself is holding its breath to not disturb their descent. Maylin returns to sit beside them, not to watch over them like a sentry, but to simply be present for the final moments of their transition. She begins to hum. It is not a song with words or a recognizable melody. It is a low, wordless vibration, a tune woven from the same thread as the wind outside and the creak of the house. It is a sound from her own childhood, from her mother and her mother before her, an ancient, comforting frequency meant to guide young souls safely into the dreamlands. Lao Chen lowers the lantern from its hook, dimming its light further by partially covering it with a thin cloth. The room sinks into a deeper, warmer gloom. The dancing shadows cease. Now, the only movements are the barely perceptible rise and fall of the quilts over to small chests, and the soft rhythm of Maylin's humming. The children are not told to go to sleep. They are guided into it by the warmth of the quilts, by the safe darkness, by the familiar scent of their home and family around them, by the physical memory of being carried, by the sound of a mother's love made audible. Their breathing grows deeper, slower. Xiaofeng's hand, which had been twitching, falls still. Xiaoying's lips purse once in a dream suckle, then relax. They cross the border completely. Their faces lose the last traces of daytime awareness, softening into the blank, beautiful peace of deep sleep. The hum fades into silence. The parents look at each other across the sleeping forms of their children, a look of shared accomplishment, of profound, quiet love. The most important task of the day is complete. The children are safe, they are fed, they are loved, and now they are peacefully asleep, embarking on the nightly voyages in the silent ships of their dreams, while the lanterns subdue glow and the murmuring night stand watch. But the children embarked on their voyages into sleep. The energy in the lantern-lit room diminishes by several degrees. The focus, which had been softly tethered to the young one's descent, now drifts like settling dust toward the two eldest figures in the room. The grandparents have been sitting in their places of honor, still as ancient statues, watching the nightly ritual with eyes that hold the memory of 1,000 such send-offs. Their own time for rest has arrived, not with the urgent pull of a child's fatigue, but with the slow, inevitable tide of a day's gentle completion. The grandfather, old Master Chen, is the first to move. He places both hands on the arms of his chair and pushes down, not with strain, but with a careful marshaling of strength. His body rises in stages, first the shoulders lifting, then the spine straightening, finally the legs taking the weight. He stands for a moment, feeling the familiar aches and whispers of his joints, the map of his long life written in physical sensation. He takes up his walking stick, a length of polished bamboo worn smooth by his palm, and uses it not for urgent support, but as a third leg for balance, a companion for the short journey to his sleeping space. He does not go to the main family sleeping area. His rest is a more solitary affair. He moves slowly with a shuffling, deliberate gait to a small adjoining room. This is his sanctuary. It holds a narrow, firm bed, a simple wooden stand for his few possessions, and a small altar with incense and a picture of his late wife. The air here is still and cool, smelling of sandalwood and old paper. The light from the main room spills weakly through the doorway, casting a faint, golden path on his floor. He performs a slow, private ritual. First, he removes his outer tunic, folding it neatly over the back of a chair. Then he removes his shoes, placing them side by side with the toes pointing away from the bed, a lifetime's habit of order. He pours a small amount of water from a ceramic jug into a basin and washes his face, the cold water a sharp, clarifying kiss. He dries himself with a rough cloth, the friction bringing a faint pinkness to his papery skin. Finally, he turns to the bed. He pulls back the thin, padded blanket and sits on the edge. He lets out a long, slow exhalation, a sound that is partly relief, partly acceptance. He swings his legs up and lies down flat on his back, his hands coming to rest on his stomach, one over the other. He stares up at the darkened ceiling, invisible in the gloom, and allows his body to sink into the firm support of the mattress, the day's conversations, the taste of the meal, the sight of his sleeping grandchildren. All these impressions swirl gently in his mind before, slowly dispersing like leaves settling on a pond. His breathing, which had been shallow and raspy during the evening, begins to even out, finding a slower, deeper rhythm reserved for this private hour. In the main room, the grandmother watches her husband's doorway until the faint sounds of his settling cease. Then she turns her attention inward. Her preparation is quieter, more internal. She remains seated for several more minutes, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes closed. She is listening to the now steady breathing of the children, to the distant final pops from the cooling hearth, to the endless cricket song. She is releasing the day, strand by mental strand. When she is ready, she opens her eyes and stands. Her movements are stiff but precise, each one economical. She goes to a carved chest and takes out her night things, a soft, worn sleeping dress. She changes in the dim light, her back to the room, a silhouette of shifting cloth. She then goes to the water basin, splashes a little water on her face and the back of her neck, and pats it dry. She does not have a separate room. Her sleeping mat is laid out near the children. A short distance away, but within the same protective circle, she kneels beside it, her joints cracking softly in protest, and with a practiced motion slips beneath her own quilt. She does not lie flat like her husband, but on her side, curled slightly, position held over from a lifetime of sleeping beside others, making herself small within shared spaces. Once settled, she does not close her eyes immediately. She looks across the short distance at the mounds of her sleeping grandchildren. She listens to the synchronized whisper of their breath. A profound sense of continuity fills her. Has heard this sound for generations, the breath of her own children. Now the breath of her children's children. It is the sound of life continuing. The most beautiful music she knows. She watches until her own eyelids grow too heavy to hold. Then she allows them to close. Her face, which in waking hours is a network of gentle lines and patient intelligence, smooths out. The slight frown of concentration between her brows disappears. Her lips relax, her breathing shallows, becoming almost imperceptible. She does not fall into sleep so much as she allows it to envelop her, like warm water rising slowly around her. Her mind, so full of practical knowledge and quiet stories, finally grows quiet, retreating to a silent, dark chamber where even memories rest. Now, both elders are at peace. The grandfather lies in his room, a still, straight line in the dark, his chest rising and falling with slow, ancient rhythm. The grandmother lies curled near the children, a soft, small shape, her breath a faint sigh in time with theirs. The house, having witnessed this final surrender, seems to settle more deeply into itself. The active energy of the family is gone. Banked like the fire in the hearth, what remains is a profound watchful stillness, the stillness of guardians who have stood their watch, and now content that all is safe and well finally close their own eyes, leaving the night to its gentle natural watch over the sleeping home. Profound transformation settles over the house. The last conscious mind has drifted into sleep. The final deliberate movement, a hand adjusting a blanket, a head turning on a pillow has been made. What remains is not emptiness, but a deep, resonant stillness so complete it has its own texture and sound. This is the stillness of the late night, the hour when the world belongs not to people, but to time itself and the fundamental processes of existence. The lantern in the main room has burned low. Its flame, once a bright teardrop, is now a tiny, persistent blue heart at the tip of the wick, casting not light, but merely a faint amber glow that seems to cling to surfaces rather than illuminate them. The objects in the room, the table, the chairs, the loom are no longer distinct shapes, but darker masses pooling in the universal dark. Their edges dissolved, they have returned to being mere potential, waiting for the sun to recall them to form. The symphony of the night has entered a new movement. The earlier, vibrant chorus of crickets is diminished. Now only a few soloists remain, their chirps spaced further apart. Solitary notes dropped into a vast well of silence. Chirp, a long pause. Chirp, they sound. Contemplative, almost questioning. The wind, too, has changed. The sighing breeze has died away to nothing. The air is perfectly still, as if the world is holding its breath between the exhalation of day and the inhalation of dawn. The loose shutter no longer taps. The bamboo grove is silent. In this near absolute quiet, the subtle sounds become events, the soft tick of the cooling metal, cooking pot on the hearth contracting minutely, the almost imperceptible rustle of a mouse or perhaps just a dried leaf, shifting in a hidden corner of the roof, the delicate, crystalline crackle of the last ember in the hearth surrendering its final spark of heat and collapsing into white ash, but the dominant sound, the new heartbeat of the house, is breathing. It is a layered, polyrhythmic music. From the children's corner comes the soft, synchronized duet, two sets of small lungs drawing air in slow, deep, untroubled pulls. Inhale, pause, exhale. It is the sound of complete trust. Bodies repairing and growing in the dark. From the grandmother's mat comes a different rhythm, a shallow, whispery inhale, followed by a longer, sighing exhale that sometimes catches faintly at the back of her throat. It is the sound of light, elderly sleep, a fragile but persistent melody. From the grandfather's room through the open doorway comes the most distinct pattern, a rasping draw of air, a significant pause that stretches the silence taut, then a sudden gusty release. That is almost a word hot before the cycle begins again. It is the sound of endurance, of a body and spirit that have weathered countless nights and greet this one with familiar, stubborn rhythm. These breaths do not clash, they intertwine, creating a living tapestry of sound that affirms life's continuation. They are the house's true pulse now, replacing the daytime sounds of talk and work with this nocturnal chorus of sustenance and rest. Outside, the natural world claims its dominion. An owl closer now utters its low, resonant call, not a shriek, but a soft, questioning hoo that seems to vibrate in the cold air. It is answered by another from across the river, a faint echo. They are the night stewards, somewhere in the vegetable patch. A hedgehog or a pangolin snuffles softly, its delicate sniffing and the faint scratch of claws on earth audible in the crystalline silence. High above, a bat's ultrasonic clicks are inaudible, but the swift, silent flutter of its wings cutting the air near the roof tiles is a whisper of swift, blind purpose. The moon, if it is up, is not visible through the paper windows, but its indirect light has changed the quality of the darkness outside. From an opaque black to a deep, luminous blue, this bluish glow seeps weakly into the room, competing with the lantern's dying amber. It paints cold, faint outlines on the edges of the windows, a reminder of the vast, cool cosmos turning silently above the slumbering town. Inside, time becomes meaningless. Breathing cycles mark its passage. Not clocks, an hour might pass between one grandfatherly exhalation and the next. The stillness is not stagnant, it is dynamic, a slow, gentle fermentation of rest. Dreams unfold in hidden theaters of the mind. Memories surface and dissolve. Bodies mend and recharge. The house itself continues its ancient dialogue with temperature and humidity, creaking once in a great while with a sound like a sleeping giant turning over. This is the core. The night, the bustling intentions of the day are a distant memory. The anticipations of the coming dawn are not yet born. There is only this profound, suspended present, a peaceful void where nothing is demanded and nothing is planned. The family sleeps deeply and securely. The house holds them. The night watches over the house. And in the heart of the late night stillness, there is a perfect, fragile peace, as deep and silent as the roots of the ancient plum tree in the courtyard, waiting in the dark for the first faint promise of light. The deepest hour of the night arrives. It is a time beyond time, a space between breaths of the world itself. The faint blue luminescence from the hidden moon has faded, leaving an absolute, velvety blackness that fills the house like still water. The lantern's flame has finally surrendered, its wick drowned in the last of the oil, leaving behind only the faint, ghostly scent of smoke and warm paper. Light, in every form, has been extinguished. There is only dark, and the sounds that darkness makes audible. The breathing patterns within the house have shifted once more, descending to their most profound and unified state. The shallow, individual rhythms have smoothed and slowed, merging into a single, soft, oceanic sound, the collective respiration of a sleeping family. It is a low, steady murmur, like a distant tide, washing against a shore of silence. The grandfather's rasp, the grandmother's sigh, the children's soft pulls, all have blended, their edges softened by the depth of their shared rest. They breathe as one organism now, a single entity of peace and recuperation pulsing gently in the heart of the dark. All other sounds have receded to the very edges of perception, or have ceased entirely. The last cricket has fallen silent. The owl has concluded its patrol. The nocturnal animals have retreated to their dens. The wind is utterly absent. The world outside the paper windows is a void of perfect quiet. Even the house has finished its settling. The beams and planks have reached thermal equilibrium with the cool night air, and now hold their peace in this absolute stillness. The only movement is the slow, inevitable journey of the stars across the unseen sky and the imperceptible turn of the earth. Time is not measured in minutes, but in the gradual, cooling release of the day's stored warmth from the clay tiles of the roof, and in the slow, deep cycles of dreaming minds within the children. Dreams are not stories, but sensations, the warmth of sun on skin, the comforting weight of a quilt, the safe, familiar smell of home. Their small bodies are utterly limp, every muscle surrendered to the embrace of rest. Growth hormones travel their silent pathways. Memories of the day as ant processions and bean boats are sorted and filed away in the quiet archives of the mind. The elders have journeyed to a place beyond ordinary sleep. Their rest is a profound stillness that borders on meditation, a conscious uncoupling from the physical realm. The grandmother's spirit, untethered from the aches of her joints, floats in a warm, wordless space of memory and peace. The grandfather's mind, so often preoccupied with the linear stories of the past, is adrift in a timeless, formless serenity where all stories are one and all wisdom is quiet. The parents, Lao Chen and Mei Lin, sleep the solid, restorative sleep of providers. The weight of their daily responsibilities, the guidance, the labor, the care has been lifted. Their minds are blank slates, their bodies heavy and still, recharging the deep reserves of patience and strength that the coming day will require. They do not dream of tasks, they dream of color and light, or they do not dream at all, existing simply in the void of pure, unthinking rest. The house itself is not empty. It is full brimming with this collected, breathing peace. The darkness is not an absence, but a presence. It is a protective cloak, a soft, nurturing blanket that allows every living thing within these walls to turn inward completely, to focus all energy on the essential silent work of healing and restoration. In this deep night, the entire town is united in this same state. Behind every paper window, in every quiet courtyard, families are submerged in this collective ocean of sleep. The village is not a collection of separate homes, but a single slumbering creature. Its heartbeat the sum of 1,000 gentle breaths, its consciousness diffused into 1,000 private dreams. The worries of yesterday are dissolved. The potentials of tomorrow are not yet formed. There is only the endless, forgiving now of the night, and the calm is boundless. It extends from the still forms under the quilts out through the silent rooms, over the courtyard walls, down the empty lanes to the edges of the sleeping fields and the hushed banks of the river. It is a calm that has been earned by the day's honest labor, by the shared meals, by the gentle words, by the acts of patience and love. It is a calm that feels eternal, as if this deep, collective rest is the true and natural state of the world, and the busy day is merely a brief, vivid dream from which they all must occasionally wake. The darkness begins at its furthest eastern edge to thin, but this change is infinitely slow, a process measured in the turning of a planet, not the turning of a page. For a long, perfect stretch of time, there is no dawn, only night, and in the heart of this ancient, gentle town, wrapped in absolute dark and absolute quiet, the family sleeps on deeply, completely, held in the arms of a peace so vast and so complete it needs no name, no light, and no end.